water a plant in a pot. This is really, really important information. So after allowing the soil to dry out the appropriate amount, so that means if your plant, again, is a desert plant or a dry loving plant, has to dry out a lot between waterings, or if it's a plant that likes the moisture, you don't have to worry about it so much. So you fill your watering can with tepid water. So that's just water that's not cold. It's just got to be just like room temperature. So step one is you do a very light pre-watering of the entire soil surface. So how you do that is you take your watering container and you take your pot. Just want to make sure I have the right pot. This pot will work. And so I'll take my pot like this, assuming this is full of soil. And I'll just get a small trickle of water out, and I'll start to evenly coat the entire surface of the soil until I get over the whole surface, and I've kind of dampened every little bit of it once, just lightly. I'm just trying to water the surface. And then I stop and I wait 5 minutes. Step two is apply a second application of water evenly to coat the soil surface yet again. So now I come in and I water it again very lightly, and I make sure I cover the entire soil surface. And if there's any parts that look dry, I'll make sure I hit those. And then I stop and wait. I'm just using a very small amount of water. I would maybe use, like on a big pot like this, I might just use maybe just a very small amount out of this. In the 2 waterings, very little. So I'm not really watering for depth at all. I'm just moistening. I'm doing what's called a pre-moistening. So I wait another 5 minutes, and I'm just waiting out. I could wait even 10 or 15 minutes if I want, and then that'll slowly soak in a bit. Down below, the soil is already a bit moist, so its tendency to want to take on water it's easier for it to absorb water, basically, because it's already just a little bit moist. So now I can really literally give it its first watering. So now I can take this container, I can do the same thing. I can go over the surface, but I'll go over it 2 or 3 or 4 times, and I'll give it a half a liter or a liter, depending on the size of the pot. And it's going to soak in now because I pre-moistened it twice. And I do that every single time I water, but I'm always letting the plants dry between watering. So the key with that, the key information there is that when these potting soils become dry, they become actually what's called hydrophobic or hygrophobic. And that's where, if anybody's ever, and I'm sure a lot of you have dealt with flour before, and you have a bowl of flour and you try to put water into it. And what happens? The water beads up. It's just like it does not want to blend in with the flour, because the flour is so dry, it literally repels the water. So that's called hygrophobic. That material is hygrophobic. So when our potting soils become very dry, they become hygrophobic. So they don't want to take on water, just like the flour. If I want to get it wet, I have to squish it into the soil. But what I do is by doing this light watering, and you might even find that you might have pots that are even more dry. They're so dry that you have to do this about 5 times or 10 times, light waterings, and wait, and then light water and wait. And then you check it by putting your finger down and check how deep it's going. And if you put your fingers down and open it up and you look at that soil and it's just powdery dry down there, then you've got some work to do. It's going to take more and more of this repetition. So one thing you can do is, if you have a lot of roots in the pot, so if the plant's been living in the pot for years and you've got a lot of roots in there, then you can do submersion. So you get a bucket of water, again, tepid water. You take your plant and you just submerge it right down into that pot, and you just leave it there, and the air bubbles come out, and that's getting rid of all that air, and it's forcing the water to get in contact with the soil. So when it stops bubbling, you lift it up and just let it drain out. And that's the best way, really, to water plants. I do that outside more than I do it inside. And I do it commonly with any plant that becomes so dry. You know what a symptom is of a plant drying out? Is that when you take your watering can and you just start watering it, and the water comes out in the tray in the bottom right away. That means that the soil is hygrophobic. You poured the water in the top, and it just like immediately went straight to the bottom and out the hole in the bottom. So it's not sticking. So you literally have to take that water, pour it back in the top, and catch it again, because it's the soil is too hydrophobic. You have to slowly soak it. So just as a heightened awareness, that submersion technique is really valuable for plants that become super dry. And I'm sure we've all experienced that from time to time. You come in and a plant is completely wilted, and it's because it's in a pot, you know, it's waiting for you. So the plant wilts, and what you need to do is soak the entire plant from top to bottom. The cells inside the plant are bursting and dying as we speak, because they have no water. They're dying. So what do? Submerge the entire plant, or spray the whole plant with water. Anytime a plant wilts, you soak it with water. So when you spray water onto it, it immediately relieves the stress off the plant, and you'll see the plant start to come back, and it'll slowly, the leaves will become turgid again, and they'll fluff out, and it'll be all good.